can fool all the people some of the time and some of the people all the time, but you cannot fool all the people all of the time. Good evening and welcome to Face the Nation. The questions you want to be answered. My apologies first of all for starting the show a bit late. We were waiting for the arrival of our guest. However, I need to thank Minister Navin Dissanayake for coming here on time and being punctual this evening. Our topic of discussion this evening is about avant-garde, the judiciary, and the role of the government in order to establish good governance. Let me introduce our guests this evening. We have with us this evening Minister of Plantation Industries, Navin Dissanayake. Thank you very much for joining us, Minister.
Thank you.
And also Attorney at Law Krishmal Varanasuriya. We will be joined by Attorney at Law Srila Laktilaka in a short while from now. We are waiting his arrival as well. Let's start off with Minister Navin Dissanayake. Minister, forward march of the government in order to establish good governance. Is good governance really in practice today? You have 3 minutes and your time starts now.
Thank you for having me today in this esteemed television knowledgeable conversation-wise, where the people have a right to be educated on political, social and economic issues. Good governance is certainly one of the major themes and concepts that this the presidency was established in January 8th on this year. Certainly when there are insurmountable odds in getting rid of a very corrupt and nepotistic regime, the concept of good governance was meaningfully established as a hardcore theme of our campaign. I was one of the leaders who took the lead in coming out of that government and establishing a momentous historic political journey for this country. Good governance is not only by word, but it also has to be by deed. And the things that you mentioned earlier, for example, avant-garde issue, that covers the gamut of corruption, the corruption issue. The judiciary covers what we need the people of this country, the citizenry of this country need an independent judiciary. They must have faith in justice, and justice must not only be seen to be done, it must also be actually done. And of course, the concept of governance is also very important, where we have actually taken several steps to establishing good governance in this country through the passage of the 19th Amendment. And we have actually brought the powers of the President and the presidential system down and given more powers to Parliament and the Prime Minister. There is a lot more to be done. For example, we believe that the 20th Amendment also should come in and make the members of Parliament accountable to the electorates more. In terms of corruption, there is a lot more to be done. Certainly corruption seems to be an endemic problem in this country, and politics and money politics seems to have taken a hold on our political system. So we have only been in power for a very short time. The people have reposed a majority to the United National Front government, but also we have formed a national government, and I think that's a very healthy sign because it gives stability to the system, and we need stability to pass certain amendments, certain judicial processes and laws, so that the concepts that you mentioned can be further established and strengthened in our country.
Thank you very much, Minister. That of course was Minister of Plantation Industries, Mr. Navin Dissanayake. I now move on to Attorney at Law, Mr. Krishmal Varanasuriya. What is the role of the Attorney General's Department in order to establish good governance in the country? The time starts now.
Hi Shamir, hi Faraz and all of you. Thank you for inviting me once again to your august audience, as the Minister said. Once again, my apologies for being slightly late, but as I did tell you when you all invited me at the last moment, I had a old boys union meeting of a school that the Minister and I both attended, where I'm the secretary, and I had to come from Colombo up to Ratmalana. So that's probably the delay. No offense.
And the Minister did come on time.
Yeah, Minister was not at the meeting with me. I was. So no offense to you nor your viewers. So once again, thank you for having me. The Attorney General is the chief law officer of the state. The Attorney General, I would like to look at as a furtherance of the people's sovereign judicial power that's vested in the state. As you know, our sovereign power that's in Article 3 is split into 3 branches in Article 4, legislative, judicial and executive. Now, it's the people's judicial power that's exercised by the judicial arm of government. Now, that includes institutions that are established for the processes of law, which includes the Department of the Attorney General. Now, this is why, if you all remember, sometime back when the AG's department was sought to be brought under the umbrella of the executive president, there was a big uproar saying you can't do that, don't make it part of the executive because it must remain independent within what it used to be. So the Attorney General has a very important role to play. Now I know that we'll be discussing in detail the Attorney General's role with regard to what the Minister also alluded to, the avant-garde situation. Now the AG, first I must say, I am not here to hold an umbrella for anyone, and I don't mean to defend the Attorney General. It is the people, it is the people's right, the people's judicial power. And if that power is not being exercised properly by the Attorney General, the people have all the right to criticize. It's a people's power. However, on this particular issue, having dealings with no nefarious dealings, but everyday dealings in the court with the officers of the AG's department, I do believe that there is a question before the Attorney General as to whether he can actually proceed to prosecuting them in a criminal court, because rightly or wrongly there appears to be an authority granted by the previous defense establishment to carry out this business. You follow? So now when you have an authority, if I were the Attorney General, I think twice. When someone, I don't want to go to a court of law for someone to dash an authority by the defense establishment in my face, say, look, I have the authority to do this business. Remember, this floating armory business is not only avant-garde. Now, there are now, say for example, British Embassy as marshals. When they come here, they also use the same storage to store there. Now, that's a legal business. You follow? So, whether avant-garde business is unlawful and all that, we can discuss later. But as regards the Attorney General, we need to be probably careful. Possibly it's good if we can hear from the Attorney General himself or some officer. We need to be careful when we criticize, because we know that the Attorney General is also bound by the authority that's there to do this business.
Thank you very much, Attorney at Law, Mr. Krishmal Surya. We did try to reach out to the Attorney General's department as well as avant-garde to field their representative to this show today. However, our attempts proved futile. I now move on to Attorney at Law, Mr. Shira Laktilaka. Mr. Laktilaka, you closely work with President Maithripala Sirisena. We saw this during the campaign trail, and even now we saw you in New York with the President as well. What is the thought or objective of the President with regard to avant-garde? The time starts now.
You know, if you take the avant-garde issue as a separate case, it represents multifaceted shady deals happened in the past. But if you take the presidency as an institution, the presidency which came into power or established after January 8, which takes a very firm stand on corruption. So you need not to differentiate between what is the stand on avant-garde or any other case. Equally, the present government and the present president is maintaining a zero tolerance policy on corruption. But we have seen in the past, when it comes to avant-garde, there is some kind of impunity or complacency involved with avant-garde issue. This impunity or the complacency has several folds. As Krishmal correctly said, Sea Marshal program is a legal business. But unfortunately in Sri Lanka, including Attorney General, has not been able to identify, analyze the avant-garde case as itself. So my argument on avant-garde cases within a very legalized business, there were several shady businesses took place or even up to now happening. So that is the very simple analysis I can give to the avant-garde issue. Now, it not only, if you look at why this kind of things are happening in Sri Lanka, the governance is intrinsically connected with the economy. Unfortunately, although we started talking about good governance, we never started talking about democratization of the economy. Our problem is still we are having a crony economy. Equality of opportunity in economics is not available in Sri Lanka, which is a part of our governance also. So it is a embedded or deep-rooted crisis in Sri Lanka. You can't think about governance or democracy without, removing economy. Now, not only avant-garde, our whole economy depends on cronies. So this is the problem in Sri Lanka. So you can't separate one thing and talk about democracy.
Thank you very much, Attorney at Law, Mr. Shreyal Lakhtalekar. Before I move on to the Q&A from our journalists, I have a question for Mr. Lakhtalekar. You said avant-garde function is legalized, it's okay to function. However, there are several shady business within the organization, and it is happening even now. If that is the case, who is responsible for this?
Yeah, that is
There is a change of regime right now.
Yeah.
Who is responsible now?
Responsibility lies at the state. State. There are several state institutions. Now, if somebody complaining about a shady or illegal or unethical practice, then who is responsible to start investigation?
So you are saying the present government is responsible?
Yeah, state is responsible. Basically state, I'm talking about state and government. Those are two different conceptions. Now under the state, there is a police department. So police have to finalize or conclude the investigations based on correct criteria. Now take for instance, if you take avant-garde, there are several facets involved with avant-garde business. One is Sri Lankan state has created a public institution called Ratna Lanka to engage with certain defense related businesses.
Government or private company?
Private company. Then it has outsourced its business to avant-garde. Outsourced without giving them a monopoly. So this is one area of talking about, can the public institution or public-private institution outsource its powers or its business to a private institution without a tender, without adhering to transparent procedure. So it's a corruption, right? So then there are certain instances under the Firearms Act, then International Maritime Agency regulation. You have to adhere. When you have a Marshall program, Sea Marshall program, you have to adhere certain things, right? So if you are, now one good example is according to International Maritime Agency regulation, I think it is regulation number 7, it says if you are having a floating armory and floating armory kept within the territorial waters, that particular floating armory must have the flagship status of that particular country. Now take the instance of MV Mahanuvara. MV Mahanuvara station in Gaul or within our territorial waters, it had the Mongolian flag, whereas the two ships, that is Al Jazeera and Avant-garde, placed in Red Sea, had the Sri Lankan flagship status. So it's a violation of international customary international law.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll extensively discuss about avant-garde in a bit. I want to pose a question to Minister Navindra Sanayaka as well. A government-owned private company, who owns it now? The state or the government?
No, now it is a non-functioning. Ratnalanka is functioning still. But it belongs to the state. Belongs to the state. But as it was the license and the formalities and the procedural aspects of it was done in the earlier regime, I think there is a very low-key operation, and it's been scaled down extensively because this government does not take any responsibility for the acts that this Ratnalanka has done. It was basically seen as a private army of a certain individual, and certainly this government does not endorse that kind of behavior.
Thank you very much, Minister. Let's open the Q&A. Let's start off with Faraz. Let me introduce our journalist this evening very quickly. Faraz Shaukat Ali onto my immediate right. Faraz has 2 files and a book today. I don't know what it is. Don't want to even go deep into those. Onto my immediate left is Stephanie Lazarus, and onto my far left is Shayan Jurampati. Let's start off with Stephanie.
Yes, my question, first of all, Attorney at Law Chirag Tilaka, you mentioned earlier that the AG is unable to identify the avant-garde case. That's something that you mentioned earlier. So my question to you is, do you think he is the right person for the job if he cannot identify the case? It's been months now. The case has been going on for months. So does that mean that he's not doing the job right? Or do you think he is playing a good role in doing his job right?
I won't put that blame onto the Attorney General, because Attorney General compiles a case or construct a case based on the investigation. I put the blame onto the investigation arm of the state, because if you want to do a proper investigation on a very highly technical and highly sophisticated business like avant-garde, you need a special team and special criteria, special point of departures to analyze the program. Now, I'll give you one good example. For the first time in Sri Lankan history, avant-garde, Ratnalanka, has issued end-user certificates to various people, various businesses. And what is this end-user certificate? End-user certificate, which is a certificate that carries a ship. When you transport small arms or whatever arms, it is very valuable certificate. In black market, it's very expensive certificate. So far, nobody has investigated how many end-user certificates were issued by Ratnalanka. So, if that information is not with the AG, so we can't blame AG, right? So,
Who issues the certificates?
It was issued by Ratnalanka.
Does the government or the Secretary of Defence or even
on behalf of the Secretary of the Ministry of Defence, they have issued this, right? So there is a huge price involved with end-user certificates. So nobody, even media, has come up with this aspect, right? Now we who are representing the movement against corruption, at the first week of our government, we issued a dossier to the media stating these are the things that happened. Now there is a business deal with a certain Djibouti-based company. What kind of business avant-garde has had with this Djibouti-based company, who is also involved with Sea Marshals program? Then what kind of relationship they had with Nigerian government in developing these fast crafts? Navy has got that. So that kind of very sophisticated business involved by this avant-garde company. So somebody within the government or state, that is the investigation arm, must go into that. So far, my knowledge is that kind of sophisticated investigation has not happened. So what happened in Gaul they have filed or reported to the magistrate court that MV Mahanuvara, which is having a floating armory, is stationed in territorial waters of Sri Lanka, and the police thinks that it is illegal. That is what reported to magistrate. As far as, if I am correct on information, that is the report states to government magistrate. So beyond that, you can't continue that case. You need Minister for the information.
Minister, you said that your government cannot be held responsible for the activities of Rakna Arakshaka Lanka, and you said that you all want to keep away from this organization. If so, why do you all not completely close down the operation and look at this issue afresh? It seems like your government is trying to protect certain individuals. It seems like that.
No, it's not that. I think if you're looking at a closing down organization, there are certain steps you must take. You know, if you're going to liquidate a company, there are certain aspects you must go into. If you're having an employment of 500-600 people, you just can't abandon their livelihood. You have to take care of their future. So I think these aspects of closing down a system or establishment can be very controversial.
Isn't this putting a strain on the present regime?
Sorry?
Isn't this putting a strain on the present regime?
No, I mean these things that were started by VVIPs in the earlier regime, we do not accept how they were established, why they were established for, and the purposes of establishing them. Like Krishnama said, it was basically outsourcing our security systems. So that is a very controversial decision that those people did. But the President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe will not act in that manner, because they will go through the necessary processes. So this is basically hangover and luggage that is coming from the previous regime. So we must be very careful in dealing with these establishments. And I mean, ideally I would like to close it down tomorrow personally. Right? If I have that power to do it, I'll do it. But I think given the facts and the procedures, now I know during my father's time, this Mahavali authority was there, Mahavali program was there. So when you're winding down a system, it takes time, and you have to follow the legal procedures of doing it. So the will and the intention of de-escalating this process, de-escalating these organizations is certainly there.
The former General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, appearing on our particular program a few days ago, said that even he was not aware of this. Is that possible?
Who is the gentleman?
Minister Susil Premajayanta?
Yes.
He said that even he was not aware of the functions of avant-garde, and he got to know about avant-garde.
Yeah, a lot of ministers were not aware of what the brothers did, so I think he was not surprised by that statement.
It was done on the whim and fancy of certain individuals.
Yes, of course.
Mr. Vanasurya, what do you have to say? The General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, the former General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, not being aware of such a massive operation.
Atrocious. I don't know where collective responsibility was in that government. I don't know whether we had a government or a kitchen cabinet. I mean, that's what it appears if this is what is being stated. But going back to the issue, you see, if the law allows, you see, as Shiral was saying, we all three of us are aware that there is some authority, correctly or otherwise, granted to do this business. You follow? To avant-garde. Now, the Attorney General himself can't be asked to go looking as to the legality or not of that authority, because that's not the AG's business in a very direct sense. Of course, the AG can perhaps write to that secretary of the ministry and say, look, I have queries with regard to how this business has happened, can you explain? That can be done. But usually AG is not someone proactive like that. AG waits for the department to refer something to them to give it. That's the AG's role. But I don't know why this country we talk so much avant-garde. I mean, that's almost breakfast conversation every day now, everywhere, as to why some public-spirited individual or an organization has not gone to the writ court or the Supreme Court and challenged the former defense establishment given authority that it was illegally done. You remember, even a head of state of this country, the sovereign Sri Lankan is very powerful. Even former President Her Excellency Bandana Kumaratunga was challenged in the Supreme Court for acts done during her tenure as president, for which she was given punitive sanction in the Supreme Court. So, no one is untouchable in terms of the constitution. We have the power to do it. I think that's probably a way to go about it, rather than trying to blame the Attorney General for not prosecuting, because the man can't prosecute if there's authority in the file. You follow, Shami?
Shahid? Yeah, thank you, Shami. Mr. Krishmal, now, Minister Navin Dissanayake said that, the government will not take responsibility. Now you're saying the AG is not to be held responsible. From what we can see, I suppose, is that the blame seems to be passed on from one another. So where do we go, or where do we put the blame on whom do we put the blame on this matter?
Shai, I'm not saying that we must pass the buck. I don't endorse it at all. Right? But what I'm trying to say is, what we are asking the AG to do, clearly the Attorney General has said he can't. Now, he didn't directly say it, but you would remember when the most vulnerable prelates are visited by the AG and the Deputy Solicitor General, through a DSG addressing the media, they said, we have found that they had authority to do this business. But between the lines, the DSG, who made a statement very carefully, also said, but that does not mean that you can't question the legality or not of that authority. But that the AG can't do, Shine. So it's not a case of passing the buck. Surely there must be enough public-spirited people in this country who will possibly, unfortunately all three of us being lawyers, we can't espouse business on that. But surely someone should take this up in a court of law and question why was his authority given, and like Shiraj said, why were these shady deals transacted under authority or pseudo-authority or permanent authority of the defence establishment? Surely that's a question people are entitled to ask.
No, perhaps there was a fear psychosis in the previous regime, and now people will come out. But sorry, can I ask this question from Minister? Minister, now this agreement with Ratna Raksha and Avantgarde, it's full of sort of loopholes and escape routes. One is the share of the expenses. When it comes to the expenses, the government of Sri Lanka through Ratna Raksha must pay 50% of everything. However, when it comes to the distribution of profits, it is 35% for Ratna Raksha and 65% for Avantgarde. On that basis and on that point alone, I would deem it an absolutely rubbish agreement.
It's actually void that ab initio agreement. You can challenge it on those grounds. But the point is that the agreement is there in place, and those distributions have also happened. So my point is, like, if you go by issue, first the legality of the Sea Marshals program by Avantgarde. Now the defence establishment, previous defence establishment, clearly gave a license, and that is what the AG is referring to. That he is saying on the law of it, on the technical law of it, that it seems to be legal.
But we too can get creative. We can, as the government now, today, we don't have to rely on the past. We can leave that aside and we can stop giving them new business.
Yes, no, we are not giving them new business. This government has never given these two entities new business at all. The idea of winding them up is a process that, like I mentioned earlier, it has to be carefully considered with the legal implications of it. The idea of growing the two companies is certainly not on our agenda. We see them as entities that are established in a very highly conspicuous manner and in a very shady way. And those profits that you mentioned, we don't know where actually it went to. I mean,
yes, because they also approximately 1.6 billion rupees in a cash business. It's a bit like a restaurant. You sell for cash.
Yes.
You buy for credit and you sell for cash. Yes. And in this case,
profit.
Like
they share earnings.
Yeah. So like Srila mentioned, I think this whole Avantgarde company, the Avantgarde company itself, because this character was heading it, I don't want to mention his name on the, we all know who he is. I mean, as a person who was involved in that government, I've seen him so many times at temple fees. And what was so obviously there was a very close rapport between that system and the people who are heading it and him. So I think we have to question, like Sridhar said, our investigative mechanisms. And certainly I am disappointed with our investigative mechanisms that we have. We have inherited them and we can't replicate them overnight. We have to build systems, we have to build procedures, we have to sophisticate our investigative processes. For example, even this stashed up cash in overseas accounts, we haven't really gone after them in a very aggressive way. So there are procedures. We have to link up with Interpol, we have to link up with the FBI, we have to link up with the CIA and all these. So it takes time. But what I'm saying is, as far as Avantgarde and Ratnalanka is concerned, I appreciate your probing questions. This government will not in any way encourage any growth of these organizations. We would like to see these two organizations wound up as quickly as possible.
Is one of the matters perhaps of fear that the government will have to pay, Ratna Raksha will have to pay Avantgarde a penalty of $20 million for any reason that this agreement is terminated, which is fair. Is that one of the reasons? May I answer this question? First of all, now this is the interpretation problem. Certain people with vested interests who are trying to establish that the outsourcing contract between Ratnalanka and the Avantgarde is a legal contract, which is not, as the minister said. It has entered on the basis of monopolistic practice.
Right.
I have a letter to show the former secretary to the finance ministry and the defense secretary has issued a letter threatening other organizations to stop practice and give sole business to Avantgarde. Right? So it is, although it's seemingly legal contract, which call in civil law impari delictio. Right? So it is a contract entered to do illegal business.
So point that the issue.
From the point of start, this aspect is not discussed in legal circles as well as media. They are trying to say, well, there is a contract. Contract for what? Contract to award monopoly.
Sure, in 30 seconds explain this in very layman's terms. For example, Shiva, myself and Naveen can't enter a contract here to murder someone. Why? Because murder is a violation of the law. So just because we have a document, three of us signed saying we are going to murder Paras, we can't. That contract is invalid. You follow? Because it's a violation of the law. So someone can't just say that there is a contract that has been signed, and because of that contract we are going to allow the business to continue, because that's void. There is no legal effect of that.
But Sridhar, why can't the president ask the defense secretary to stop forthwith all business and invite, there are about 30 other companies engaged in this business. I mean, Avantgarde and Ratna Raksha have discontinued approximately 800 jobs of sea marshals. This is being sent to me by our viewers. That's a lot of jobs, 800 jobs. Yeah, I mean, so you have to apply free market principles. Anybody can bid. Now Ratnalanka is there, it's a public institution. You can't dissolve it. No, I mean, you can carry on with the business. Ratnalanka has to give award quotas or whatever to engage in sea marshal business. So this is what you have to do there. But what is happening right now, there are cronies who have vested interest. This is not only in Avantgarde business, everywhere.
In the present regime.
I mean, I will confess that although we have been able to democratize the governance by introducing 19th Amendment, introducing several commissions, but we are still not in a position to democratize the economy of Sri Lanka. Right? Equality of opportunity is not there. So that's crisis in Sri Lanka.
Minister,
So we are
very
very-
powerful minister in the cabinet. Allegation level that you're...
It's not allegation. I mean, it's a
This is if you look at
self-criticism.
the historic processes in Asian countries. If you look at the Marcos regime, the Suharto regime, where you have centralization of power, big business always flocks to that. I remember personally, even although I'm a very strong UMP and my family has been part of the UMP, with the executive presidential system, the big businesses, the private sector has always been with the presidency. That's why even during the last campaign, I'm sure all of you know that, the big business houses in this country were supporting that regime.
Is that why there are super gain taxes now?
No, I don't think so. I don't think
Is
it's
that like a regime change tax?
No, I don't think it's a vindictive tax like you're making it out to be. But my point is that it takes time to, now the democratization process that we have started, where you have kind of power with the president and also the prime minister, because now you have a system where power is with the cabinet, the parliament and also the president. So that's a new system. So it takes a while for the system to come into the full flow of it, but for the past, from 1977 onwards, we are used to a system where there is heavy concentration of power. And always big businesses, historically in any country, has been with that concentration of power.
Thank you very
That's
much,
my point.
Minister, for that. We now move on to the third round. Let's start off with Attorney at Law, Mr. Krishna Varnasuriya. You have 2 minutes. The question posed to you is, are you satisfied the way in which this government is acting right now? Time starts now.
With the Minister of the Government on my left and advisor to His Excellency on my right, who are both my good friends, I think I have to say Shami, that's someone who, not from the 8th of January, but even before that, who sought to change a very despotic regime. I am not totally happy. I'm not totally happy for several reasons. Yes, we've come further from where we were. We are not afraid of being lifted in white trans, but remember, even at that time of white trans, there were some of us who were continuing to agitate this, which is why we made the change. But now, having done that, I don't want this government. I hope they will change. I know it's still early days. It's still 2 months from when they formed government on the 17th. But you see, I have questions. One, is there a strong opposition in this parliament? I mean, to me, I said this morning on your station, it's like that old song, the more we are together, the merrier will be. Your friend is my friend, my friend. You take a little to the opposition, you take a little to the chief opposition whip, you take this commission, we'll all govern together. That's not how democracy is supposed to work. So I have opposition must have a shadow cabinet. Today, who's our shadow foreign minister? Have I heard a shadow foreign minister talking about Geneva? Who's our shadow finance minister? I don't know. So these are things that we expected with the change of government. I know it will take a while, but I don't live in utopia. But because we suffered all that and sacrificed and made this change, I'd like to see governance that was promised to the people. The rule of law that was promised. People are fast being disillusioned. I'm sorry to say all about the lawyers, but going to court is the last option for people these days. It should be the first option when their rights are violated. So why is this? So we need to seriously think and get governance back on track and the rule of law back on track. And so I'm not voting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Krishna Varnasuriya is also an attorney at law. I now move on to Minister of Plantation Industries and Minister Navin Dissanayake. Mr. Dissanayake, we saw 125 million being solicited by 3 custom officers. Now they are in remand custody until the 30th of October. Fingers are being directed at a powerful minister in your cabinet. What is going on? Good
I have not heard of that allegation that there is a powerful minister. Always when there is any big corruption issue, always as a politician, the allegation is that there is some big politician behind it. So I can't comment on that. I think let the investigative process carry this on a bit further. Like Srira mentioned, this president and also the Prime Minister does not have a zero tolerance policy on corruption. So the investigative processes have to be more sophisticated in catching corruption. I always believe that corruption is, what we are seeing is the tip of the iceberg. We are not really seeing the larger picture of corruption. Now when you look at the avant-garde case, it's very clear. We are looking at millions of dollars being thrown to politicians also. And I'm sad to say that politics in Sri Lanka centers around big money. To do a campaign, election campaign, you need a minimum of, I would say, 20 million rupees to do a successful campaign. So where does a politician get this money from? So these are, I think, larger questions we have to ask about society. Even if you look at the public, you know, the bribe giver and also there's a bribe taker. What about the bribe giver? We are used to giving bribes. This society is so used to giving bribes and getting things done. Even rupees 5,000 to get a small job done in a government office, to paying millions of rupees to a big politician to get things done. So again on corruption, we need to have a better system of curbing it, because I don't see any transparent process of curbing corruption, because we have corruption, anti-corruption commission, but has it got the real teeth to go into the necessary investigative processes in a correct way? So I think we have to really examine our society and ourselves when we talk about corruption.
Minister, you was talking about the electoral system indirectly. Your president, our president, the Prime Minister of this country pledged that in a new parliament the electoral system would be changed and this would be a priority. But we've not seen anything concrete taking place up to now.
No, we are working on the 20th Amendment. I think Sridhar can confirm that. We hope to bring the 20th Amendment at the beginning of next year. And that is a definite thumbs up and a go for us, because it is one of the planks of our victory in 2000 in January 8th. So there's a lot of young parliamentarians who are very tired of this system, who can't keep on running like this, and who can't keep on collecting money like this for this corrupt political machinery. And we certainly want to see a change, and I hope it will happen next year.
Thank you very much, Minister. And now move on to Attorney at Law, Mr. Shiva Laktilaka. Ms. Laktilaka, yesterday speaking at the Cabinet media briefing, Cabinet spokesperson Dr. Rajendra Ratna said that the President has decided to intervene in the avant-garde case. How does he intend to intervene in the avant-garde case and bring justice? You work very closely with the President. The time starts now.
Don't bring that my closeness to this whole thing, but you know.
But you do work with the President very
What I
closely.
have to say is that so far, if you look back on this particular incident, for last 8 months, the government has failed to conduct this investigation in proper manner. And that is what we see. We have to be honest. You know, the nicety of this present government is that we will not hesitate even to criticize if there is a problem. Unlike previous government, we are not going to paint white paint over the issue, and we don't want to put that under the carpet. There is a problem from the beginning. I said in investigative process, we have a problem. So therefore, the President, according to the Cabinet spokesman, the President has directed the Defence Secretary to take into this situation and report him back. So what does that mean? That is to rectify the investigation process. So first of all, we must investigate it according to proper criteria. As I mentioned earlier, there are so many instances. Now, for instance, there is another issue that avant-garde has entered into a defense deal with the Nigerian government to provide fast naval craft, 75 fast naval craft on behalf of the Navy. So how can it happen? So there are so many things. That's why I said at the beginning, there are so many shady or unclear issues in relation to this business. So somebody, very sophisticated investigation arm must go into these things.
So there are so many, like Sriram mentioned, not only the legality of it, But within that organization, so many, maybe 20 or 30 transactions that have happened, running into millions of dollars.
Why not establish? You are a powerful minister.
We must. That's my personal view. Because this is such a corrupt organization.
Don't you have a say in the government?
And such a corrupt man who was heading it.
Minister, do you have a say in the government?
No, I have.
You seem to be
suggestion that I
a lot of
made.
personal views and not representing the cabinet
Suggestion I
and the
made.
government.
But we have 40 odd cabinet ministers. So I'm just one of them.
Thank you very much, Minister. We're going for a short commercial break. Our topic of discussion today is avant-garde, the judiciary, and the forward march of the present regime to establish good governance. Stay with us. This is Face the Nation. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. Q&A from our journalists. Let's start off with Stephanie.
Well, Minister Navin Dissanayake, you earlier said that we don't have sophisticated investigations. We don't have a good mechanism. My question to you is, what is the reason behind not tackling this issue? Because all three of you all agreed that there is no mechanism in place, there is no good investigation committee in place to tackle the issue of, finding out the culprits in the Ratna Alakshaka Lanka. So what is the reason behind not tackling this issue? Because this has been going on for months on end.
No, I'm sad to say that even the investigative mechanisms, the institutions that should have them, have also been corrupted. Now you know that the police department, there was that famous case, what's that DIG's name, who got caught to that murder? Not Tudigampala, it's recently. There was a police officer who was Vaskunodana. So he was caught. He had been doing that, taking money from people and bumping people off. Can you believe this? The police of this country.
Miss court case.
So what I'm saying,
yes, you can go.
So once you have the system being institutionally corrupted, how can you expect a government to make these institutions, streamline them, methodologize them, conceptualize them and bring new systems in a matter of 8-9 months? You can't do that. So that's what I'm referring to, Stephanie, when you're talking about investigative arms of a country that has been continuously harassed, continuously undermined, continuously corrupted. This has been happening not only during the Mahinda Rajapaksa regime. It has been happening over a continuous period of time, maybe from 1970s onwards.
So do you think these officials should be reappointed?
I think we really need to have honest men in top positions. Honest set of people who the President and the Prime Minister handpicks and put them in place. I'm disappointed with and I'm saying this openly, publicly. I have told this to the Prime Minister, and I'm putting my neck on the line also. I'm disappointed with the FCIU's operations also. I think they are kind of heading in the wrong direction. So I'm bold enough to come on a TV and say that, because I'm not afraid, because I don't think the President or the Prime Minister will victimize me by me saying that. That is the regime it's a different regime we have. We can, all three of us, come here and express ourselves. Whereas if I said that earlier in the Mahinda Rajapaksa regime, I would have next day I would have lost my position. So I think in that way the system has changed for the better. But we need to keep on. I mean, the police in this country, they have a huge responsibility. And I think all of us in this room are not happy and disappointed with the police's behavior.
So we understand that the FCIB have sent a number of cases.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you're talking about FCIU.
Yeah.
Beg your pardon. In that case, can I give a question to Mr. Srilal, please? Isn't it possible for the President to have, it appears that this whole thing, this avant-garde and the Attorney General and all that, it's all mostly, anyway, related to the Ministry of Defence, and the sums of money is astronomical at $80,000 per transaction, and at around $500 to $600 million business. Isn't it worth the President's while
to have a special commission of inquiry purely to look into what the Ministry of Defence, headed by the former Defence Secretary, has been up to.
Yeah, it's a great idea, but that has to be emanated through the cabinet. You know, it's a cabinet-led government. Some minister must come out with the proposal.
Can we ask you to champion the cause?
No, look, I came to a program with clean hands.
Thank you.
Right, and with good faith, Ubrima Friday, and I just said that.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is the monopoly of that has to be broken. You can't. You can't. Stop that monopoly and give it to another person.
No.
That whole thing has to be broken up. That's what I'm saying. So and also you have to find out what really happened. So either you have a judicial process, or you have a presidential commission basis, or you investigate, or you have a more firm and thorough investigative process. That is up to the political leadership to
answer
decide.
this question. You were a minister in the previous government too. Did the cabinet, as far as you know, in the previous government, give Mr. Octomber Rajapaksa, in his capacity as Defence Secretary, overwhelming powers to enter into agreements with anyone he deemed fit?
The cabinet meetings I entered into, this Ratnalanka thing did not come up. But of course there were several cabinet meetings that I did not attend. So as far as I know, the cabinet had not given this approval for Ratnalanka.
Because everyone we speak to, everyone says, well, you know, we were given permission. So
we have gone through most of the letters issued by the Defence Secretary. So he using his own power.
I will give you time. Equality, I wanted to interpolate, so you said no. Shiral is coming out of the statement.
I will talk. Let's give Mr. Lakhdar to say something, and then I will come back to you, Mr.
That's unfair or something?
No, I will.
Equality.
There is equality as well.
There is no equality. I'm sorry to say. I want to interpolate, just say 10 seconds saying that I disagree with the statement. You didn't allow me to do that. Then Shiral is coming with an entirely different point. So that's
I will let you talk. Ms. Lakhdar, please go on. I will give you some time. I don't need your Ms. Lakhdar, yes.
No, I mean, if Ishmael wants to speak, I mean, this is a lively discussion. I had a spontaneous idea. That's why. Sorry to interrupt. I didn't want to prevent Ishmael talking. I mean, these are spontaneous ideas are coming. You love to come out with that idea. What I am saying is, at the moment now, if you look at the way Defence Ministry. Now I disagree with you on that issue also when you suggested to talk why the Defence Ministry should take action. The role of, I mean, if you look at the division of labour of this cabinet, there is a law and order minister and ministry. So law and order ministry is responsible for looking into this kind of area, not the defence. Defence is a subject. So don't take, now previous government, Defence Ministry is considered as a military apparatus. Right now we don't think
all this is all commercial.
So commercial. So therefore there is an investigation needed by the police department, fraud bureau, CID.
Mr. Also, your views on this? You said you disagree with
that. I said I want to express beyond what Naveen was saying earlier, was that I saw a passing of the buck here between the executive arm and the cabinet, because the president is the head of the cabinet. So I can't hear my learned friend, who advises the president say, let the cabinet come out with the idea, and my learned friend on my left say, well, we amended the constitution, but that president being the head of the cabinet to prime minister being head of the cabinet did not go through. So the president works as the head of the cabinet with the cabinet of ministers. So if there is a real will, we all of us know why, as to why a commission is not being appointed to investigate it. I think it ought to.
Why? What's the reason?
Obviously, a monopoly that is existing in one company now, it may very well be that the same monopoly may be given to someone else later. I mean, it's a big business.
benefited right now?
I do not know. These are things that may be discussed at the very high echelons of government. But if you actually want to make, it's what I said, the illegality of the transaction remains. Yes, the Attorney General can't prosecute because there is authority in the file. Correct. But if you give a monopoly to someone to do a certain business, forsaking all others, that can be attacked. Now, why are we not checking that? Why are we not taking that monopoly away and voiding this contract, which is both, all three of us agree, void ab initio. It's a contract that is void in law. Why are we not doing it?
Why are we not doing it, Minister?
No, that has to be asked from the head of the cabinet and also the president, because these are fundamental issues that affect the country, and the cabinet is collectively responsible. I think in the next 2 to 3 months, the whole avant-garde exercise and Ratna Lanka will be wound up. That is my personal view, and I think it will happen.
Mr. Laktarika, your views on this? The president is responsible?
Responsibility, I don't want to put the blame, as Krishma said, I want to pass the buck. Now, the responsibility lies at this government. That's very quite clear. But we know from January 8, there was a understanding between the executive and the government that executive will not put his hands, or he will not try to do micromanagement within the government. So therefore, that is the true picture now. Now everybody sometimes blames Mr. President. So he is not managing this affair. There are ministers. There is a prime minister. So according to 19th Amendment, we try to portray, or we maintain a certain policy that the executive arm or the president is not trying to put his arms and into this management into too much. So therefore, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, the Law and Order Minister and Justice Minister, right? The three personalities of this government should handle this issue.
Yes, sir.
But since it has not happened, now President has intervened and stated to the Defence Secretary to look into this.
Minister, you're also a lawyer, and you see individuals going to the Supreme Court and challenging their arrest. Is this democracy in play?
Sorry, which arrest is that?
You see individuals going to courts and taking restraining orders not to be arrested until investigations are concluded.
Well, that is part of
democracy
that is the anticipatory bail applications. So any citizen has the right to do that. That's not a big deal. I mean, everybody can do that, and that is part of the process.
But
coming back to Srira's statement, I disagree with him on one aspect. I think in this cabinet, or with the national government, so both the leaders, the president of as far as SLFP and Ranil Wickremesinghe, the Prime Minister's leader of the UOP, they have come into a partnership, and it is a genuine partnership for the betterment of this country. So there are 23 UOP ministers and an equal number of SLFP ministers, maybe slightly less. So as far as the defence establishment is concerned, the president is head of the defence. We all have a lot of respect and regard for the president. Similarly, we have the same amount of respect for the Prime Minister. So this is a process where, it's a new system. So I don't think apportioning blame to one party or one side is the necessary factor here, but to work in partnership, identifying the issues. Now you have, being a very public-spirited news establishment, brought up this avant-garde issue. It is something that is commendable, because no other TV station has done that. So now we have to take this forward, and we have to investigate this. We have to find out the culprits and punish them. There is no tolerance on that, and make sure that these two organizations do not come forward and their businesses don't grow, and the monopoly is broken, and the monopoly is not given to somebody else as well.
Thank you very much, Minister. We now move on to the final round. Each speaker would get a minute each because we started the program a bit late. So I give a minute each to the speakers. Let's start off with Mr. Bhavan Surya. What is the way forward?
1 minute, very fast. We need to get our governance in order. We struggled hard, and all three of us, as Naveen said, as Sridhar said, we are here speaking openly because we got democracy now. stations like yours can openly, stations like yours who know the repercussions of speaking, who we are in a very historic style studio, who we know the repercussions of speaking out. We are here now speaking out on issues that we would not possibly have been able to before. But now, having had that freedom is alone not sufficient. Remember, if governance and governments are not working, the people can't elect a government and keep quiet for the next 5 years. The people must always remain in the opposition. I always say this. The people must remain in the opposition. If the opposition is not doing their job, if the government is not doing their job, the people must agitate, and that's where media comes into play. Because remember, in our modern political science, media is the fourth pillar of democracy. The judiciary, the legislature, now we have the media.
Thank you very much, Mr. Krishna Varansuri, who is also an attorney at law. I now move on to Mr. Shreyal Laktilaka, attorney at law as well. Way forward.
Avant-garde is a good example to understand the complex nature of our country, complex nature of our economy. As I stated at the beginning, economy is intrinsically connected with governance, right? You can't separate it. January 8th we did a change. We created a democratic space, but this has to be enhanced, expanded. So by taking cue out of this whole issue, we now know, as Mr. Anurag Dissanayake, the parliamentarian, stated, how much money is spent over to, brought it down from the public sphere. So this gives us a new attempt or space to think how to democratize the economy within this good governance context.
Thank you very much, attorney at law, Mr. Laktilaka. I now move on to Minister of Plantation Industries, Mr. Naveen Dissanayake. What can the people expect in terms of good governance?
People are sovereign in this country. They proved that in ample abundance on January 8th. And no matter what hurdles are placed in front of them, they are the supreme decision makers in this country. They proved that again in the last general election by not giving a clear majority to any party. And certainly that is what caused a partnership government with both parties. So now we have to take this forward. While I appreciate your efforts of anti-corruption drives by your media network, good governance concepts, the legality and the judicial process of this country, we must not forget the economy of this country. And I think better investment environment, better economic growth with equity to our people, a fairer social contract, economic contract where the people actually benefit from this economy must also be looked at. Because while we concentrate on good governance and other aspects, the people of this country are demanding better equal economic rights for them. And I think that is something that the government has to concentrate as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dissanayake, for your comments as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Mr. Laktilaka, Mr. Varansuri, as well as Minister Dissanayake for joining us this evening on Face the Nation. Thank you very much for us, Stephanie, as well as Shaheen, for joining us this evening. And a special thank you to Minister of Plantation Industry, Mr. Naveen Dissanayake, for coming on time today for the show. I leave you tonight with a quote. Destiny is something not to be desired and not to be avoided. A mystery not contrary to reason, for it implies that the world and the cause of human history have meaning. Take care and good night.